Hi there, and welcome to The Daily Gardener, a podcast about garden history and literature. I'm your host, Jennifer Eatling, and today is October 31st. Well, this morning, Halloween has dressed Minnesota gardens in an unexpected costume, a blanket of snow. And it's still coming down. It is snowy, it is wet, it is sloppy. It's a disaster. And it's also garbage day here. So the streets are just unbelievable. The roads are not good. No one is prepared. There are no scrapers in most of these cars. There's no brushes. And on top of it all, it is the first snow of the year, which is always very dangerous in Minnesota because that means there are going to be accidents. People forget about how to drive in the snow. They forget to slow down. They forget to take their time, and that's exactly what we need to do on a day like today. You know, this snowfall reminds me of the snows that we had 2 winters ago. Those snowstorms that year were wet and heavy. We had it in the fall, and then we got hit with it again in the spring. And that's what made me transition from arborvitae to juniper, because the arborvitae don't have that strong central stem. They have many branches that just flop apart in wet, heavy snow. And my arborvitae that happened to survive from 2 years ago, they were just starting to look good. And now I look out, and after about 2 or 3 inches of snow here, they're starting to fall apart yet again. It's very distressing. But what can you do? It is Minnesota, and it is Halloween. And there are plenty of people who are very disappointed today. If Halloween is your favorite holiday, tonight is going to definitely be a letdown. I think back to when my kids were little, I probably wouldn't have let them go out to many houses on a night like tonight. Maybe we would have hit a few of the neighbors, but then we would have stayed in. I think it would have been a movie night. We would do popcorn and watch something to distract them from the fact that Halloween was down this year. My daughter was supposed to be dressed up as Glenda the Good Witch in her office, and then the person that she was dressing up with, she was going to be the Wicked Witch of the West. She decided not to come in today because of the weather, and so then Emma didn't either. So I know she's feeling a little disappointed that she didn't get a chance to wear her costume. But I'm like, hey, we may have a few trick-or-treaters tonight. She can definitely wear her Glenda outfit tonight. But anyway, I always do feel bad for the little kids and the moms and dads. It is hard on a day like today when Halloween does not go as anticipated. Now, as I look out on my garden, I have to say it did make me chuckle just a little bit. We've been talking about, for the last couple of episodes, how nature can throw us a curveball, how we can be suddenly surprised by an abrupt end to fall. And so once again, nature shows us that we plan and she laughs, and she will ultimately win that battle. I have a number of things that I still need to do out in the garden, one of which is pulling in all of my patio furniture. That's the last thing that I'm going to do. And hopefully it'll warm up here. It's supposed to be 50 degrees by the weekend, and so I'm counting on that. I need to get my cushions in and wrapped. I also need to prepare my kitchen garden. I'm going to plant a cover crop, and I need to harvest the last of my herbs. I've been taking videos and sending them to friends and family all over, showing them the beautiful fall leaves. I still have my 2 gorgeous Boston ferns hanging on the front porch, and now they're surrounded by snow. In any case, there are spiderwebs in the garden that were transformed this morning into delicate crystal sculptures with beautiful snowflakes and droplets of water. It was like Mother Nature's own special Halloween decorations. This all got me thinking about what I wanted to share with you, so I selected 2 special passages that I feel are particularly fitting for this strange, snowy morning that we're having here. The first one is from Rosemary Very's A Country Woman's Year. And in this passage, she is reflecting on spiderwebs in the garden. Wonderful spiderwebs have been festooning our garden recently. On misty mornings, each gossamer thread has a spangle of moisture to outline its pattern. And this morning, they were almost the best I had ever seen. One thread was flung across a path to the top of a juniper. There was a perfectly symmetrical web. But then the thread went on to the next plant, Grindelia, or gumweed, given to me several years ago by Tony Venison. Here, each stem had a veil of web over it, and so miraculously, it went on. To see the spider in action, it is best to go out at night with a torch. The spider is carnivorous and gets many of our garden pests for us. Many garden spiders probably remake their webs every day. I wonder if there is a connection between this proliferation of webs and the plague of flies that infest old houses on sunny October days. Well, that is the great Rosemary Veary on Spiderwebs in the Garden. The webs that I have today in my snowy garden are reminding me that Halloween always has been about that thin veil between worlds, a time when the garden seems to hold both memories and mysteries. And speaking of garden transitions, Diane Ackerman captures this liminal moment perfectly in her book called Cultivating Delight. Now, when I picked this passage, we had not even had our first killing frost, and yet here we are with 3 to 4 inches of snow expected today. But here is a passage from Diane Ackerman's book, Cultivating Delight, A Natural History of My Garden, and she is describing the first killing frost and our rush to protect tender plants. The winds die down, and for hours, I cover plants with sheets, pillowcases, garbage bags, and upside-down flower pots. I protect the annuals and also any roses with buds. Now the yard looks all set for Halloween, with pink, black, and white ghouls fluttering in the wind. My plan is to keep everything covered for 3 days and uncover them on Monday, when a week of warm weather is due. As the skies clear to a sunny blue and the weather forecasts sweeten up, I think about the covering and uncovering of the yard. At noon, I remove most of the garden's wraps so that the mummified flowers can breathe a little easier and drink in some sun. The weather forecasters are calling for clouds to roll in late, with an overnight low of around 40 degrees. As I pull the sheets off the roses, I find some broken branches and buds. The first frost is followed by 2 weeks of warmish days and clear skies, during which a sense of futility and cosmic injustice tortures every gardener I know. As Eleanor wisely observes in her 1981 book, Green Thoughts, a killing frost devastates the heart as well as the garden. So true. Well, this morning's snow makes Diane's words feel particularly prescient. There's something both melancholy and magical about this intersection of seasons. This is a moment when autumn meets winter, when the visible world meets the invisible, when gardens shift from growth to sleep. Today's episode feels particularly special to me because we are going to be exploring how gardens serve as bridges between worlds. So now I have some questions for you. On this snowy Halloween morning, what ghosts are inhabiting your garden? What plants or garden spaces hold special memories or connections to gardeners who came before you? Things to ponder as these large snowflakes fall on the garden this morning. It's time for today's Botanical History. It was on this day, October 31st in 1795, that John Keats was born into a world he would later capture through some of the most vivid botanical imagery in English poetry. Though his life was tragically brief, spanning just 25 years, Keats left us with an extraordinary legacy of poems that celebrate the natural world with unprecedented sensitivity and grace. Keats' connection to gardens and nature was profound and personal. His most famous works were often inspired by direct observations of the natural world, including the legendary moment when he composed Ode to a Nightingale while sitting beneath a plum tree in his Hampstead garden. The garden at Wentworth Place, now Keats' house, became not just his creative sanctuary, but also the setting for his romance with Fanny Brawne. Keats' masterpiece, To Autumn, emerged from a simple walk near the Hospital of St. Cross, where the stubble fields and autumn air sparked his imagination. In a letter to his friend John Reynolds, Keats captured that moment of inspiration. He wrote, "How beautiful the season is now, how fine the air." Temperate sharpness about it, really, without joking. Chaste weather. Diane skies. I never liked stubble fields so much as now. Better than the chilly green of spring. Somehow, a stubble field looks warm. Well, on a day like today, I definitely know what Keats meant when he wrote those words. And the resulting poem that he wrote gave us these immortal lines. Season of mists and yellow fruitfulness, close bosom friend of the maturing sun, conspiring with him how to load and bless with fruit the vines that thatch eaves run, to bend with apples the mossed cottage trees, and fill all fruit with ripeness to the core, to swell the gourd and plump the hazel shells with a sweet kernel, to set budding more and still more. Later flowers for the bees, until they think warm days will never cease. For summer has overbrimmed their clammy cells. The clammy cells that Keats is referring to there are the cells of the honeycomb. They're overbrimmed with honey right before winter comes calling. I love that poem, don't you? You know, that little ending part, later flowers for the bees, until they think warm days will never cease. I think those are the lines that are the most touching for gardeners. It really is marvelous. Well, today visitors to Keats' house in London can walk the same garden paths where the poet found inspiration. The White Georgia Villa's gardens have been maintained to reflect the botanical environment that Keats would have known, complete with the types of plants that appeared in his poetry. Then in the house, there is a bust of Keats, and they positioned it so that it stands just over 5 feet tall. That's all the taller Keats was. He wasn't very tall. He was small in stature. But his poetic vision of nature is a force, and it towers over English literature. And then there's Keats' poem on the grasshopper and the cricket. And it reminds us that nature's poetry continues year-round. Keats writes in this poem, "The poetry of the earth is never dead. When all the birds are faint with the hot sun and hide in cooling trees, a voice will run from hedge to hedge about the new-mown mead." That is the grasshoppers. he takes the lead in summer luxury. He is never done with his delights, for when tired out with fun, he rests at ease beneath some pleasant weed. The poetry of the earth is ceasing never. On a lone winter evening, when the frost has wrought a silence, from the stove there shrill the cricket song, in warmth increasing ever, and seems to one in drowsiness half lost. The grasshoppers among some grassy hills. Well, a beautiful sonnet from Keats on the grasshopper and the cricket, and on the everlasting poetry, the never-ending, infinite poetry of the earth. It was on this day, October 31st in 1852, that Mary Eleanor Wilkins Freeman, one of America's most remarkable chroniclers of New England life, was born in Randolph, Massachusetts. Primarily known for her fiction, Freeman's stories were richly embroidered with botanical imagery, evidenced in works like Gentian, The Scent of the Roses, Mountain Laurel, and The Wind in the Rosebush. Her intimate understanding of gardens came from personal experience. Her Metuchen, New Jersey home featured 2 beloved rose gardens that she tended with great care. What made Freeman's garden writing unique was her ability to weave botanical knowledge into deeper social commentary. In works like A New England Nun and The Revolt of Mother, she used garden imagery to explore women's roles and rights in late 19th century America. Despite requesting no flowers at her funeral when she passed in 1930, her friends covered her casket with blooms. Her cousins recalled after her death how she particularly loved roses and autumn colors. The pink flowering mallow and wild cherry trees that appeared in her stories were drawn from her keen observations of New England landscapes. She used garden imagery and the common names of plants to illustrate the human condition with remarkable sensitivity and insight. Candace Wheeler, the woman credited as the mother of interior design, noted in 1902, "Scientific names of flowers are a painful necessity. Common names represent their relation to humanity." It's time to grow that garden library with today's book, Seedtime and Harvest by Christy Purifoy. Well, today, as snowflakes transform our Halloween gardens into a wonderland of white, I'm sharing this thoughtful new book that explores how gardens connect us across time, seasons, and even the boundary between worlds. This book came out in March of this year, and the subtitle is How Gardens Grow Roots, Connection, Wholeness, and Hope. And the arrival of this book feels particularly timely on this Halloween morning when the veil between past and present seems especially thin. This book is thoughtfully organized into 4 main sections, each exploring how gardens grow different aspects of our lives: roots, connection, wholeness, and hope. Purifoy herself writes with profound understanding of that rootless feeling that many people experience. She writes, "I sometimes think I was born rootless. At its core, gardening is not about the roses or the dahlias or the tomatoes that we might grow. At its core, gardening is an intimate, ongoing relationship with a place. And it is this relationship that roots us as firmly as a tree is rooted in the ground. It's no wonder then that so many people turned to gardening during the pandemic, a time most of us were feeling rootless. And so gardening can help provide that sense of attachment and connection that all humans need. Purifoy's Halloween-worthy chapter about garden ghosts tells a story of discovering a previous gardener's legacy through an inherited rose bush and its heavenly perfume. And just like Mary Wilkins Freeman's supernatural roses and Keats' nightingale garden, Christy Purifoy's experience reminds us that gardens are places where past and present mingle in mysterious ways. Here's a little excerpt from her garden ghost story. Sometimes ghosts announce themselves by ringing your doorbell. 4 days ago, I was sorting laundry into piles on my bedroom floor when 2 men used chainsaws to attack the enormous girth of an old Norway maple only a few yards from my front door. Up on the second floor of this red brick farmhouse, I could feel the entire building tremble whenever another section of the old tree fell to the ground, as if a giant stone had dropped into a giant pond, and the waves were washing right over me and my house. That is when the doorbell rang. Between the barking of our dog and the whine of the saws, it's understandable if I thought the small group gathered on my porch were neighbors come to complain about the noise. When the bearded man in front of me said, "I used to climb that tree," he told me his name. I remembered then how 10 years ago my husband and I had been handed papers listing all the families who had ever called this place, Maplehurst, home. 50 years before, a family with my maiden name had lived here with their many children. Now here was a little boy from that long-ago family. He was all grown up, newly retired from work that had taken him far from Pennsylvania, and once invited in, bursting with boyish eagerness to show his wife and adult daughters the family place, to tell his stories of climbing trees and falling downstairs and watching his mother make wineberry jam in the kitchen. And in that moment, I finally had a name for the ghost in my garden. She loved flowers, he said. She gave tours at Longwood Gardens just down the road. She tended azaleas, and she grew roses. Especially, she grew roses. Here then, in the flesh and blood of his stories, I had the name of the ghostly gardener whose path I had so often traced through the brambles that edged our property. I had glimpsed her shadow in the azalea shrubs that still bloom each spring in the bright colors beneath the old hemlock and pine. I encountered my garden ghost most directly on a day in late spring. The breeze had picked up, and I suddenly smelled perfume, rose perfume. Curious, I hunted out the source of the smell and found a bubblegum pink rose, half hidden by weeds, but nevertheless climbing the ruined stone foundation of the barn. This was no thorny multiflora. This was a gardener's rose, and now I knew who planted it. Her name was Dorothy. I walked Dorothy's family through the entire house, apologizing for the laundry piles, the state of the teenager's bedroom. Dorothy's son asked if his mother's roses remained. I looked away and said only no, unable to admit that the pretty rose I discovered by its scent had been lost again when the landscape crew hired by the surrounding neighborhood overzealously sprayed and mowed. Her azaleas are still here, I told him, and I am planting roses. If you come back this summer, I'll show you the roses. Then he lifted the dog crate beneath my son's bedroom window and with a huge grin on his face, showed me the black marks on the wood floor. His brother, he explained, had once lit the curtains on fire by playing with candles. When my husband came home later that day, he asked if our visitor had been sad, if he had been grieved to see how much had changed. But I knew he had not been sad. He had been delighted. Even those black spots on the floor had delighted him. It didn't seem to matter that the roses were gone or that the huge tree was shaking us with its going. If anything, our piles and messes and noise seemed to prove the house that had held so much living was still here, still full, still alive. The sun still slept in the barn-marked room, and a mother still grew roses in the garden. Well, this is just a sampling of Christie's wonderful writing. Her book balances practical garden knowledge with spiritual insight, offering guidance on creating wildlife habitats and butterfly gardens, growing heirloom roses that connect us to past gardeners, developing contemplative spaces like tea gardens, planning year-round displays that honor seasonal transitions, and preserving garden legacies for future generations. Alongside these practical tips, Purifoy explores deeper themes like finding belonging in a new landscape, healing through connection with nature, nurturing hope in times of climate change, and creating garden memories that outlive us. To me, it's Christie Purifoy's perspective on gardens as spaces of reconciliation that feels especially powerful. I wanted to share one more passage with you from her book. She writes this about the power of the garden. Gardens grow much more than plants. Gardens grow life. When we care for a garden, we are caring for our own selves. We are caring for the entire green and blue jewel that is the garden of planet Earth. Well, this book concludes with a moving epilogue on hope in an age of climate chaos, reminding us that every garden, no matter how small, is part of an eternal cycle of renewal and rebirth. A rather fitting thought for this Halloween morning as snow blankets our gardens in transformative white. This book is 208 pages of gardening wisdom, spiritual insight, and practical guidance for cultivating not just plants, but also deeper connections to place, memory, and mystery. You can get a copy of Seedtime and Harvest by Christie Purifoy and support the show using the Amazon link in today's show notes for around $18. Today we end the show with a Botanic spark that celebrates a remarkable gardener's legacy through one of the most beautiful horticultural epitaphs ever written. In the secluded churchyard at Troston Hall lies Edward Ward, who died on this day, October 31st, in 1804 at the age of 92. Edward wasn't just any gardener. He was part of an extraordinary lineage of gardeners that spanned at least 2 centuries. The Wards had tended the gardens at Troston Hall for over 200 years, passing the craft from father to son through generations. Edward himself served as a gardener there for more than 70 years, continuing a family tradition that had began at least with his grandfather, if not even further back. Edward's epitaph, both elegant and profound, captures the deep connection between a gardener and the seasonal rhythms that shaped his life. It says, "Thus thy long round of years and toils fulfilled. Rest, good old man, no more to fear or hope from the returning seasons and their change, till the great spring arrive and call thee forth to bloom, we trust, and fruits on earth unknown." Well, the metaphor of the great spring speaks to both resurrection and the eternal cycle of gardening that defined Edward's life. After witnessing over 70 springs in his garden, the epitaph suggests he awaits one final glorious spring. This beautiful tribute reminds us that gardening is more than a profession. It's a legacy that can span generations, connecting us both to the earth and our ancestors who tended it before us. Well, that's it for today's show. As we close today's Halloween episode, we have journeyed through a remarkable tapestry of garden stories that span generations and seasons. We began with John Keats, born today in 1795, whose poetry captured the essence of garden moments, from nightingales singing in plum trees to crickets chirping behind a stove. Then we discovered Mary Wilkins Freeman, born on October 31st in 1852. Her stories wove garden imagery into powerful narratives about New England life. Then Christy Purifoy's new book, Seedtime and Harvest, carries these themes forward, especially in her touching chapter about garden ghosts and inherited roses. How fitting for Halloween that she reminds us that gardens are places where past and present mingle, where previous gardeners leave their legacy, perennial plantings, and careful design. Finally, our Botanic Spark today illuminated the story of Edward Ward, the dedicated gardener who died 220 years ago after walking in his father and grandfather's footsteps, tending the same garden for 70 years. On this Halloween, as autumn paints our gardens in gold and crimson and white, these stories remind us that gardens are more than just places of beauty. They are repositories of memory, catalysts for connection, and bridges between generations. Thanks for listening to The Daily Gardener, and remember, for a happy, healthy life, garden every day.